Only on CBS This Morning, Dean Strang and Jerry Buting are with us. Good morning, heartthrobs.
Yeah, good
morning.
Dean, you squirmed a little when you heard that word.
Every time.
The prosecutor says the filmmakers purposely left out key facts in this documentary, including evidence that Avery's DNA was found under the hood of Teresa Halbech's car. Why do you think they left that evidence out, Dean?
The movie gives a very lavish 3 hours plus to one trial. The trial went over 200 hours.
Yeah.
And I guess, if the prosecutor and the police are really secure in the convictions they obtained, I've wondered why they've sounded so insecure about a movie that necessarily couldn't run 200 hours.
But in the case of Teresa Halbech, we've learned too that he called her cell phone 3 times on the day that she was murdered. Why was that left out of this series? That's important information, I would think.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, they try to make, the state now is trying to make that a lot of these pieces that weren't in the movie more sinister than they really were. It's nonsense to say that large parts of the state's case were left out. With regard to this, for instance, also left out was the fact that he called and made an appointment to the office. If he had her cell phone number and he was trying to lure her, why would you call the office and create a paper trail? You would just call her directly, and no one would ever know that she had come there. Instead, he goes through the office.
And just remind people, how did they know each other?
She had been at the Avery salvage yard, I don't know, 5 or 6 other times to take pictures of other vehicles that they were selling. And in this instance, it was his sister's vehicle. And so his sister's name was left as the person on the account whose car was being sold. But the address was Avery Road. And
she said, "I'm going to see the Avery brothers."
And yes, so she knew where she was going. There was nothing sinister or unexpected about how that was arranged.
Mm-hmm. How do you explain the other thing they're raising is that DNA was found on the victim's hood? It's interesting that DNA exonerated him in the other case, and now the DNA is being used in this case to possibly incriminate him in this crime.
Well, first of all, the prosecutor has said that sweat DNA, quote unquote, sweat DNA is found on the hood, and there's no such thing as sweat DNA or perspiration DNA. It's just DNA. Where it comes from, they can't tell.
It's transferred from something that may or may not have been from him.
Right. Are you all convinced of his innocence? Are both of you convinced of his innocence?
I'm not convinced of his guilt. I'm not at all convinced of his guilt. Never have been, and not today.
That's not quite the same thing. So you're saying there is some doubt in your mind.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And if it was okay to convict people on maybes, I wouldn't be worried about this, but it's not.
Your team says that law enforcement may have planted evidence on Avery. What do you think they planted, and what proof do you have?
Well, I think the documentary covers that pretty well. There's one whole episode deals with the evidence of where we thought the evidence went towards planting. The key that wasn't found until the 6th or 7th search of this little trailer.
In a small area.
In a small area. In plain view.
Yes.
The key, which by the way did not have her house keys or her keys to her studio or anything.
And didn't have her DNA on it.
And did not have her DNA on it.
Yeah.
The evidence that the bones had clearly been moved. They were found, part of them in a burn barrel over behind the Bobby Dassey residence, about 200 yards away. And some more bones in a quarry.
So how do you all see this turning out? How do you see, right now he's in prison. How do you see it resolving itself? Or do you? Do you think this is just it? It certainly raised a lot of questions, this documentary.
He's assembling the legal team,
yes,
which was job one at this point. I think his best hope lies in newly discovered evidence.
Right. And we've received emails from scientists from all over the world. I've had at least 100 different emails now from different scientists who've looked at this and said, hey, the science has really improved. There's a lot more that can be done in terms of EDTA testing that was a big part of the case, and other types of blood tests that might be able to prove that this blood did not come from him actively bleeding in her car.
Well, boy, it's fascinating. It's got everybody watching. You got everybody watching. Thank you so much for being here. Dean Strang and Jerry Buting, thank you. And Making a Murderer can be streamed on Netflix.